Okay. Hello.
Hello,
We do have one person who's joined in. Good morning, Devansh. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. What's the time there, by the way? It's around 1 over here.
It's 4 p.m. here.
4 p.m. here. All right. Okay. So let's just wait for our counselor to join in today. We're going to talk about something very interesting, something that I've always thought about when it comes to therapy and counseling. And I'd love for her feedback on this as well. She's had, she's done a lot of work in the field, essentially psychotherapy. Her field is psychotherapy. And I'd love for her to join in and kind of like give us a brief rundown of what she's done herself. But I've known her. I've known her with respect to her work. I've worked with her before, so I do know that um, uh, she has a background in counseling and counseling in diverse fields, very diverse clientele as well, dealing with a very diverse clientele. So I think that would be wonderful to learn somebody to learn from today. Hi, Rabia, how are you?
Assalamu alaikum. I am good. How are you, Khaula?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us today. And so we had like a brief talk about what we're gonna do, what we're gonna talk about today. Essentially, and before we go to that, just give us a brief introduction about yourself, what you've done in the field, how you've contributed to the people, and what makes you, I don't know, stick around. Because like for everyone I meet in the field of psychology, they're just like, crazy people. You know, you deal with so many crazy people, you become like a crazy person yourself, and just like a general conception of the whole field and the people who work in the field. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your experiences.
Okay, I personally feel that's a perspective of people who are not in this field. That it's either about crazy people working for crazy people or whatever it is, which is I think so not true. So my name is Rabia Khalid. I have done my MS in clinical psychology, and then I did like a lot of certifications in psychotherapy. And then I did my certification in EMDR, which is a trauma-based healing. And then because I was always into spirituality, I am currently doing some spiritual healing certifications. And yeah, I've been practicing in Islamabad at PF Hospital Unit 2, and then I do online sessions with our local and my international clients.
Great. Great. Devansh here, we're also going to quickly introduce Mission Elixir, and Devansh is going to do that. I'm just like the handler today. I'm just the facilitator, so I'm gonna give all the work to both of you today. Devansh is gonna tell us very briefly about Mission Elixir as well. Devansh, over to you.
So, Mission Elixir is a personal development and well-being platform, and the social cause or mission of Mission Elixir is to sort of extend a helping hand to people in the situation of committing suicide or being severely impacted by mental health. So, we started Mission Elixir in January this year, and since then it's sort of grown to be something a much bigger mission than we actually initially thought. And it
Yeah.
started that in a way that we were raising funds for an individual who was impacted by warlike situations because he took a loan and he couldn't pay it back. And we started selling garments in an attempt to extend a helping hand to this individual.
That's
Lovely, lovely.
a great thing. Yeah.
Mm. That's definitely something that I mean, with uh, wars and conflicts, civil conflicts, and just international wars afflicting not just one country right now, but just multiple places in all over the world, that has a lot of impact on how not just our psychology, but socially how we deal with each other, what happens to our psyche and generational trauma that it carries, and the kind of trauma that we give to our kids afterwards is it just, in real time, like it breaks your heart, but overall, if you just see like the amount of work that you have to do in the field, the amount of work for each counselor, therapist, or practitioner that is there is a lot. So I think, yeah, I mean, when I joined Mission Elixir, like the whole mission statement was enough for me to, sell me off on the whole idea that therapy in itself needs to be there for people, because in real time we have very real, and Rabia, like these things we used to study about it. We used historically, we used to hear about the World War I or World War II, and then nobody would think that something like that would happen again. And yet right now we have wars, literally earthquakes, wars, natural catastrophes, and then man-made endeavors, problems that are happening. And all of these things are impacting people in real time. And so, Rabia, like this question is for you, like, what kind of like people have you, what kind of cases have you dealt with before? Have you ever dealt with acute PTSD or trauma? And yeah, well, what have you just generally faced? Generally?
I honestly think with whatever cases people like different kind of traumas or whatever presenting complaint they bring in, most of, I'm not going to say always, but most of them are going through self-esteem issues. Underlying reason of that comes down to low self-esteem. But if you say what kind of issues people bring in, it has been panic attacks, depression, anxiety, borderline, and then multiple traumas, sexual abuse. So these are the things that people come in with, but then it goes down to having self-esteem issues because of whatever environmental factors have, like, caused those issues. But
So
yeah, like
so
not
something like, am I
feeling good
worthy?
enough about yourself. And I think in mostly even about the suicide cases, I've had like cases where they were like almost suicidal, and then again it was about not feeling good enough about yourself,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
it comes down to self-esteem issues.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it also comes down to the question, am I worthy enough to live? Am I worthy? And that's where suicide essentially stems from as well, like, or ending your life stems from as well, because the idea that is my life valuable enough for me and others for me to survive, for me to give back to the community. And then we're going to have a different talk in the coming days around conflict trauma and what that does to the sense of self, but that also has a very important effect on your sense of self. Like, I think that when it drops down, like at the end of the day, we perceive ourselves the way others perceive us. Like they are our mirror, and if that mirror is faulty, if there are cracks there, our sense of self is so fragile. It's fragile. It will break like
Because
that.
we internalize all that into ourselves, so that becomes like our critical person within us. Other people, like, at times, that don't even really have to say much. It's just, yes, like you said,
Absolutely.
we're just mirroring what they are like telling us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we had a talk earlier on about a new, different mode of therapy. I wouldn't say it's new. I think it's been there for a while, for a couple of years, let's say. But it's only now that people have started using it more in practice, in psychotherapy, in talk therapy. And it's a spiritually focused therapy, yes? And I would like for you to tell us a little bit about what you think that is, or how what your background is with respect to that, how, if you've learned it from somewhere, and like how, what is it about? Because like spiritually focused therapy, if I didn't know anything about it, how would you, or people who are listening in right now, what would you tell them?
Okay, your voice is echoing a little, Khaula, but
All right. That's probably because I'm
okay.
sitting in a very big hall right now, so I'm gonna.
Okay. All right. So I have always been into Sufism and spirituality since when I was very young. Like, but I don't think that I really got a platform where I could like know about it or connect more. I mean, I've been to to different phases where I was always attracted to people who I found were spiritual. So for me, spirituality, my religious perspective wasn't about hell or heaven. It wasn't about the fear of hell and desire of heaven. It was about connecting to God, or connecting to the spiritual being, or connecting to that, that energy. I mean, whoever can relate to that, supreme being. So I was always into it, but then, life happened, and then you're going through that journey and you're trying to hold on to like different things, whatever brings you peace. Then eventually, when I was doing these certifications, I, thanks to a friend of mine who actually introduced me to the spiritual healing. So spiritual healing is a lot like psychotherapy. So in psychotherapy, we basically work on connecting ourselves within. It's a self discovery journey. We self reflect and we get to know ourselves better. So spirituality is just like a one step deeper than that. You connect yourself with the supreme being. But what's interesting about spiritual healing is something that I didn't know, was that our feelings or our needs are important. Like, you can't dismiss them, because like the way we are brought up, we usually told that Allah, connect yourself with Allah and sab kuch theek ho jayega, and but that's not it. You have to know what you're going through. You have to address your needs. You have to know your feelings, because you can't connect to the supreme being until those layers are healed.
Yeah.
You need to address them. Is something which was so beautiful that I learned, that the way we've learned about that connection relationship is very fear-based. Through this, I learned that it's all about love, and we all humans are part of that supreme beings. We are mirroring him, and we see them through other people, other objects, and everything. And it's irrespective of the religion. It's for everyone. And in those certifications, honestly, people from other backgrounds or religions are more excited, more devoted to it than any of us, Muslims. So it has been a really beautiful journey, and it's about how you feel the light of the supreme being or Allah within you, and how you connect to it, and how you heal all those needs. So it's a different kind of meditation, similar to what we do in psychotherapy, but it helps you connect to the to God, basically,
Or a higher power, or
or a higher
so
power.
essentially, I think essentially, it's not just for a specific religion. It's an all-rounder therapy, including meditation, meditative practices, connecting to the center of your own self, but also center of the universe, in so
Yeah,
to speak.
yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
And how do you think it's different from traditional psychotherapy? Like, why should we need something? Why should we? I mean, if you had to sell it to therapists, like include this in your therapy as a condiment to your general psychotherapeutic practice, how could it help them? And how is it different from traditional therapy? Like, what does it give to us that traditional therapy does not? What do you think?
All right, so I use spiritual healing for clients I know can connect to. It probably wouldn't work for everyone, unless they're ready for it. So if I see that readiness in them, that's where I, apply spiritual healing as well. You see, we all have like an emotional dependency on people, or like, we need companionship, or we need the support system. There's always a void left, like, there are expectations from others around, and when we are hurt, we're like, okay, where do we go now? So that void has to be filled. For me, I think that void could only be filled through spiritual healing, through my connection to the higher power. And once you experience it, nothing is more beautiful than that. You literally, when you are doing those meditation, you literally connect to yourself, and you say, what was my learning from it? Like, Allah, or what was this for? And it's not like, we don't see the superpower, the highest power. We can just only feel it, so it makes sense. We can feel it or connect through different things. So while we're doing those meditations, you can see images, you can hear sounds, but you can actually tell the difference. Like, those epiphanies kind of thing, you can tell is it just a random thought, or is it coming from where? So the more you meditate, the more you're able to connect to the higher power, and it starts making sense, and you get those answers. So then again, our feelings, our needs, our experiences are important. We can't dismiss them. So once you go through the journey through meditation of healing those needs and feelings, you're able to connect and to the highest power. So I think that word that we always have in our hearts, and we're running for something, we're trying to escape the hurt or the pain. I got my answers through spiritual healing.
Also, so you mentioned what kind of clients we can't use this with. So in my practice, let's say, especially clients that come from an abusive past, or who suffer from PTSD or any kind of like chronic trauma related to sexual abuse, let's say, would probably also question their own religion, right? They would also question the existence of God. So they would ask something like, why, if there is a God, why would that God let this thing happen to me? I mean, there are kids right now dying in Palestine, and I do believe that overall, generally, the people who are watching all that content online as well, people like us who are fine, who are secure, safe and sound, living in their own homes, we're also questioning that, right? In the back of our minds, it's, if there is a God, why would that God let something like this happen to innocent kids? So again, when it comes to spiritual focused therapy, how do you, if you have a client like that and you do see that they are spiritually inclined, but they're also struggling with that notion that, why would God let this happen to me? How would you like deal with that? Like, how, I don't know if this is a very good question, but how would
it is
you?
a good question, because I'm not gonna even talk about clients. I'm gonna talk about myself, because when when Palestinian thing was happening, that was the first time ever, because I'm like, working on being so spiritually connected, and it somehow did bring me peace. That why would you do this? Or who are you? Where are you? And then I was discussing it with a friend of mine, and what she said sat well with me. She said, it's not even about the Palestinian people. It's about us. It's about what are we. I mean, it's a test for us, because when you listen to these Palestinian people and the messages they are sending, they're like, pray for yourself. When we see those pictures, they're horrific and they're painful, but they have some kind of peace and strength, and I don't know where is that coming from. But their messages are very like, their faith is really strong. I mean, when we see their pain, it's too painful, but for them, I don't know how they're dealing with it, but their messages give a lot of strength. So the test is for us we're not standing up for them. We're just living our lives. The governments, if everyone collectively literally stands up, Israel is just like, then again, I don't want to go into the political details.
Yeah, let's not.
So it made sense to me,
Yeah.
Then ask yourself, introspect, what are you doing in that situation? Or if we all collectively start asking us, what are we doing to, make something better?
But also, how does SFP kind of factor into this? So if we do, essentially, you worded it brilliantly. Like, this is something we are picking up latent trauma from the content that we see online, and so unable to help. And then there's the survivor's guilt. There are so many psychological problems associated with it. And so that's, I think my question is, when it comes to SFP, spiritually focused psychotherapy, is that how does religion or lack thereof fit into this practice? How
I didn't
do we
exactly.
go ahead and treat this? Yeah.
How do we what?
How do we go ahead and try and treat this with SFP? Something like this, where already they're
By
skeptic, they're
by
doubtful.
all right. So if are you talking about the specific sexual abuse kind of
Maybe so.
kind of traumas, or generally?
Anything that, yeah, just generally, anything that afflicts us and makes us challenge or question the existence of God in the first place because of what we're going through. So how does SFP, I mean, you have a client and they're struggling with spirituality. They want to believe in God, but they're also having trouble believing in God because of what's happening to them or around them, and the inability to control it, inability to solve it, inability to get out of it. How do you come to create a treatment plan for that client based around spiritually focused therapy?
All right. So spiritual healing is a lot of experiential work. You see, you have to experience to know what exact. I can't really explain it in words that how does it work. So those meditation is an experiential work. But if I specifically talk about the sexual abuse, though I haven't as yet used spiritual healing for a client like that, but if I were to work with spiritual healing with a client with a history of that sort, so when you go through an experience like that, you hate that person and you especially stop loving yourself, your body, and the clients that come to me, they just don't feel pure anymore, and then you'd work on making them love themselves, love who they are, love and know that God loves you too, and he's there to heal you and protect you. So that's how I would work on making them love themselves and then connect that being connecting themselves with God, because it's all about not feeling good about themselves and not being loved anymore because something like that happened to them, and then they're gradually able to feel good about themselves, and it doesn't hurt as much as it
Build their
was hurting
connection
them
again.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need the spirituality within us kind of anchors us down, and there's a need to rebuild that relationship for that person, for the mental health of that person, and that's a beautiful relationship that you've drawn there, which is important for healing. Yeah.
And then also when you reach that connection, and then obviously there are waves, not that you have that connection all the time. Sometimes you really have like a strong connection, sometimes you don't, so it just goes like up and down in waves. But when you have that, you're able to see the world as like a 3D thing, like from outside of what's happening, and then you see your purpose. I think I really like to work on everyone's purpose, and everyone has a different purpose in life. How do you connect to that purpose? And when you give meaning to that, I think the perspective towards life changes.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you for that. That's a lovely way of. I just wanted to introduce this whole concept to people who do follow us online, or people who we do want to, offer our services to. We've got a brilliant team of counselors and therapists. They're very global. Some are Arabic speaking, some are Hindi fluent, Urdu fluent, English fluent. So essentially, and they're different. And I wanted not just specifically the viewers, but also generally people to know that there are different modes of therapy that can be followed, and there are different mediums. So essentially, because our preferences are different, and it's so important to offer the kind of therapeutic practice that sits in well, that helps each and every individual differently. So I think that's super important, to offer that kind of thing to everyone and just create a therapeutic practice that is more inclusive. So thank you, Rabia, for your time.
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad we could have this conversation. I'm so glad that Devansh could join us as well,
Thank you.
and everybody. Yeah. Thank you. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
day. Guys, feel free to follow us. And Rabia, of course, she's wonderful at what she does. I've known her for a while now. And so practice professionally as well and personally as well. And she's definitely somebody, you can take your problem to her. She will make sure she will solve it. Like she's on top of it. So she will let
Thank
that
you.
go.
Also,
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Devang,
Thank you
download
for
our app
having me.
from the App Store, and if you purchase any of our merchandise,
all right. Okay.
Your voice is breaking.
Yeah. Devansh, I think we've lost your voice.
I was saying that please download our apps from the App Store, and every merchandise that is purchased, it contributes towards saving lives.
All right.
Mm,
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for
definitely.
letting
Thank
us
you
know,
so
and
much.
thank you for having me. Okay.
Thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys, and thank you everyone for whoever joined the live as well. We're gonna be putting up material in just like small little nuggets of information here and there for everyone to listen to later on as well. So thank you so much, and take care of yourself. Have a nice day, everybody.